The Chronax invasion. Massive Chronax fleet attacks a Volary colony while the Dauntless is present. Volary defensive systems fail against Chronax adaptive technology. Humans reveal their true military capabilities through unconventional tactics. Joint human-Volary counteroffensive using complementary strategies. The victory leads to newfound respect and the beginning of an alliance. Reflection on how human adaptability and ingenuity changed galactic perceptions. Now I'll write part one of the story. They laughed at human firepower until they learned the truth. Part 1, First Contact Misjudgment. The United Earth vessel Dauntless drifted through the outer reaches of the Orion Spiral, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Unlike the sleek warships of Earth's defense fleet, the Dauntless was built for exploration, a massive cylinder with modular compartments rotating to create artificial gravity, powered by fusion reactors that left a distinctive blue trail in its wake. Captain Natasha Ockafer stood on the bridge, her dark eyes focused on the holographic display showing an anomalous energy signature ahead. 20 years in the exploratory corps had taught her that unexpected readings often led to the most significant discoveries. "Quantum fluctuations increasing, Captain," reported Lieutenant Marcus Daniels from the science station. His fingers danced across the sensor controls, adjusting parameters to capture more data. "Whatever's out there, it's big." "All stations, yellow alert," Ockafer ordered calmly. "Chief Engineer Hartford, are we ready if we need to make a quick exit?" Gillian Hartford's voice came through the comm system, her Scottish accent thickened by excitement. "Engines are purring like kittens, Captain. We can bolt the moment you give the word." The bridge crew maintained their professional demeanor, but Ockafer noted the tension in their postures. Humanity had been exploring beyond their solar system for only 3 decades, long enough to establish a few colonies and trading outposts, but not long enough to feel entirely comfortable in the vast unknown of interstellar space. "Contact," Daniels called out, multiple vessels emerging from what appears to be a spatial fold. The viewscreen showed space itself seeming to ripple and tear, revealing a fleet of ships unlike anything in human records. They resembled massive crystalline structures, geometrically perfect and glowing with inner light. 5 smaller vessels surrounded one enormous command ship nearly twice the size of the Dauntless. "No recognition in our database," reported Security Chief Wei Zhang, her hand hovering near the weapon's controls. "Configuration suggests advanced technology far beyond our current capabilities." "We're being scanned," Daniels added. "Comprehensive sweep across all spectrums." Ockafer straightened her uniform. "Open hailing frequencies, standard first contact protocols." Before communications officer Ravi Patel could comply, the main viewscreen activated on its own, displaying a humanoid figure with iridescent blue skin, elongated features, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "Unidentified vessel," the alien spoke, its voice melodic and flawlessly translated. "This is High Admiral Zylvareth of the Volary Confederation. You have entered sovereign Volary space. Identify yourself and state your purpose." Ockafer stepped forward. "I am Captain Natasha Ockafer of the United Earth vessel Dauntless. We are an exploratory mission from Earth in the Sol system. We were unaware this region had been claimed. Our charts show it as uncatalogued space." The alien's upper eyes narrowed slightly. "Your charts are evidently primitive. The Volary have maintained dominion over this sector for 3 centuries. Zylvareth paused, studying something off-screen. "Our preliminary scans indicate your vessel utilizes rudimentary fusion propulsion and minimal defensive capabilities. Your species is unknown to our records." "We're relatively new to interstellar travel," Ockafer acknowledged. "Earth began exploring beyond our solar system approximately 30 Earth years ago." This elicited what appeared to be amusement from the Volary admiral. "Infants playing among the stars. Fascinating. Our records show no other advanced civilizations in your sector. How did your species achieve space travel without guidance?" Zhang muttered under her breath. "Is he seriously asking if we needed someone to hold our hands?" Akafar shot her a warning glance before addressing the admiral. Human innovation and determination. We developed our technologies independently. Remarkable if inefficient, Zalvareth responded. The Volari Confederation encompasses 47 worlds and 17 client species. Most younger races benefit from our oversight and technological sharing. Your vessel appears haphazard in design. Engineer Hartford's voice came through the comm, indignant. Haphazard? That's rich coming from someone whose ships look like flying chandeliers. Mute internal comms, Akafar ordered quickly, maintaining her diplomatic composure. Admiral, our vessel is designed for functionality and adaptability. Different sections serve different purposes. Clearly, the Admiral replied with what seemed like condescension. We will dispatch a diplomatic shuttle to further assess your capabilities and determine appropriate protocols for potential relations with your species. Before Akafar could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Captain, 3 vessels approaching at high velocity, Zhang reported, her voice tense. Heavily armed configuration, definitely not Volari design. On the view screen, Zalvareth's expression changed to one of obvious concern. Cronax raiders. They prey on shipping lanes throughout this sector. Your primitive vessel will make an appealing target. Stand down and allow us to handle this threat. Akafar's eyes hardened. With respect, Admiral, we can defend ourselves. Against Cronax weaponry? Impossible, Zalvareth dismissed her claim. Your technological level is at least 2 centuries behind theirs. Remain stationary while we neutralize the threat. The viewscreen split to show the approaching vessels, angular, predatory ships with protruding weapon arrays and scarred hulls that spoke of numerous battles. They moved with surprising speed, ignoring the Volari fleet and heading straight for the Dauntless. They've locked targeting systems on us, Zhang reported. Defensive protocols, Akafar ordered calmly. No offensive action unless I give the command. The Volari Admiral watched with what appeared to be pity. Captain Akafar, the Cronax will destroy your vessel before your primitive defenses can even activate. Allow us to. The lead Cronax ship fired, a beam of concentrated energy streaking toward the Dauntless. The Volari Admiral's 4 eyes widened in apparent expectation of the human vessel's destruction. Instead, the energy dissipated against an invisible barrier 10 meters from the Dauntless's hull. Adaptive shield integrity at 97%, reported Zhang with a slight smile, compensating for their energy signature. The Volari Admiral stared in evident shock. Impossible. Your vessel showed no signs of advanced shielding technology. We keep certain capabilities. Understated, Akafar replied. Now about those raiders. The Cronax vessels, apparently surprised by their failed attack, adjusted their approach and fired again, this time with multiple weapons. The space around the Dauntless shimmered as each impact was absorbed and dispersed. They're adjusting their weapon frequencies, Zhang noted. Shield adaptation in progress. Akafar nodded. Lieutenant Patel, hail the Cronax vessels, 1 warning only. Channel open, Captain. Attention, Cronax vessels. This is Captain Akafar of the Dauntless. Cease your attack immediately, or we will be forced to respond with defensive measures. The only response was another barrage, this one causing the shields to flare visibly. Shield integrity holding at 89%, Zhang reported. They're persistent. Akafar's expression hardened. Target their propulsion systems only, minimal yield. Zhang's fingers moved across her console. Targeting locked, Captain. Fire. From what had appeared to be scientific sensor arrays on the Dauntless's hull, brilliant pulses of energy erupted, striking each Cronax vessel with surgical precision. The raiders' engines flared and died, leaving them drifting in space. On the view screen, Admiral Zalvareth's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. Your vessel conceals significant military capabilities beneath a civilian appearance. This is unexpected. We're explorers first, Akafar explained, but Earth learned long ago that exploration and self-defense go hand in hand. We prefer peaceful contact, but we're prepared for alternatives. The Volary admiral studied Aukaffer with newfound interest. Perhaps we have underestimated your species, Captain. The Chronax typically retreat after encountering superior firepower, yet they continue to adjust their attack pattern. As if to confirm his words, the Chronax vessels, despite their damaged propulsion, fired again, this time with weapons that seemed to phase through space itself. Phase-shifted particle beams, Zhang called out, her voice tense. Shields adapting but at reduced efficiency, shield integrity down to 72%. Hartford's voice came through the comm. They're using quantum tunneling to bypass our primary shield harmonics. Clever bastards. Aukaffer turned to the view screen. Admiral, it appears these raiders are more persistent than expected. Perhaps a coordinated response would be beneficial. Zalvareth hesitated before nodding. A reasonable suggestion, though I doubt your weaponry can penetrate Chronax's secondary defenses. We might surprise you, Aukaffer replied. Lieutenant Zhang, coordinate targeting data with the Volary vessels. Focus on the lead raider's weapon arrays. The Volary ships moved into an elegant formation, firing brilliant beams of energy that struck the Chronax vessels simultaneously. The raiders' shields shimmered but held. Their adaptive shielding is impressive, Zhang noted. Similar principle to ours, but more specialized against energy weapons. Aukaffer nodded. Then let's try something different. Chief Hartford, are the kinetic accelerators operational? Aye, Captain. Good old-fashioned railguns are hot and ready. Target the exact points where the Volary beams are hitting their shields. Fire when ready. From concealed ports along the Dauntless's hull, magnetically accelerated projectiles launched at incredible speeds. Where the Volary energy weapons had created stress points in the Chronax shields, the physical projectiles punched through, causing cascading failures across the raiders' defensive systems. Direct hits, Zhang reported. Their shield harmonics are destabilizing. Admiral Zalvareth's expression showed clear surprise. Physical projectiles, such primitive weapons should be completely ineffective against modern defenses. Sometimes the old ways work best, Aukaffer replied. Energy shields are typically optimized against energy weapons. Physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds exploit different vulnerabilities. The Volary fleet adjusted their tactics, coordinating their fire with the Dauntless's kinetic strikes. Within minutes, the Chronax raiders were disabled, their weapons and propulsion systems rendered inoperative. Volary security vessels will take the raiders into custody, Zalvareth announced. Their piracy has plagued this sector for too long. The Admiral paused, studying Aukaffer with his 4 eyes. It appears we have significantly misjudged your species' capabilities, Captain Aukaffer. A common mistake, Admiral, Aukaffer replied diplomatically. Humanity has learned to be modest about certain capabilities. We've found that being underestimated occasionally has its advantages. Indeed, Zalvareth acknowledged. Our preliminary assessment of your vessel failed to detect your true defensive and offensive systems. Most intriguing. The Admiral's expression shifted to what might have been respect. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach to diplomatic relations with your species. I extend an invitation for you and your senior officers to join me aboard our command vessel for proper discussions. We'd be honored, Admiral, Aukaffer responded with a slight smile. Though I should warn you, there's a lot more about humanity that might surprise you. As the communication ended, Lieutenant Daniels turned to Aukaffer. Captain, do you think that was wise, revealing our military capabilities so quickly? Aukaffer gazed at the magnificent Volary fleet on the view screen. Sometimes, Lieutenant, respect needs to be earned before true diplomacy can begin. The Volary saw us as primitive children playing with technology beyond our understanding. Now they see us as potential equals. She straightened her uniform. Prepare the diplomatic team. Something tells me this is just the beginning of a very interesting relationship. Little did Captain Aukaffer know just how prophetic those words would prove to be, as the disabled Chronax vessels sent out a final, encrypted transmission, a call that would bring a much larger threat to both human and Volary space, the Chronax invasion. The diplomatic shuttle from the Dauntless approached the Volary command vessel, its crystalline structure glimmering with internal light that shifted through blues and purples. Captain Ockafer sat beside her diplomatic officer, Commander Jackson Reed, a tall man whose calm demeanor belied his sharp intelligence. "Impressive engineering," Hartford commented over the comm from the shuttle's cockpit. "Their hull appears to be a single crystalline matrix rather than assembled components." "Beauty and functionality," Reed observed. "The Volari clearly value aesthetic perfection alongside technological advancement." Ockafer nodded, studying the approaching vessel. "Remember our objectives, establish respectful relations without revealing too much about Earth's full capabilities or location. We need to understand their politics before we commit to any alliances." The shuttle glided into a docking bay that seemed to form organically as they approached, the crystalline structure reshaping itself to create a perfect berth. Inside, they were greeted by a delegation of Volari officials led by a female with silver-tinted skin. "Captain Ockafer, I am Diplomatic Liaison Televesh," she announced with a formal bow. "High Admiral Zylvareth awaits you in the Central Council chamber." As they walked through corridors of flowing crystal, Ockafer noted the perfect symmetry of everything around them. Every Volari they passed wore identical uniforms differentiated only by subtle color variations, and each moved with the same measured pace. "Your vessel is quite extraordinary," Ockafer commented to Televesh. "I've never seen anything like this crystalline technology." "The resonant crystal is our greatest achievement," Televesh explained with evident pride. "It is grown rather than built, responding to specific harmonic frequencies that shape its molecular structure. The entire vessel is essentially a single organism." The council chamber was a vast dome with a circular table at its center. Admiral Zylvareth rose as they entered. Flanking him were other Volari officials whose uniforms suggested various specializations. "Captain Ockafer, welcome," the admiral greeted them. "Your demonstration against the Chronax raiders was most illuminating. It seems humans possess a fascinating blend of primitive and advanced technologies." Reed tensed slightly beside her, but Ockafer maintained her diplomatic smile. "We prefer to think of it as practical innovation, Admiral. Humanity has always excelled at adapting diverse approaches to solve problems." "An interesting philosophy," responded a Volari with deep blue skin and scientific insignia. "I am Chief Technologist Vorjulan. Your vessel's shielding technology particularly intrigues me. It appears to use principles similar to our resonant fields, but with significant variations." "Chief Engineer Hartford designed much of our defensive systems," Ockafer replied, gesturing to Jillian, who straightened with pride. "We find that layered approaches often yield better results than singular solutions, even if they might seem less elegant." The Volari exchanged glances that suggested this concept disturbed their sensibilities. "Efficiency through uniformity has been the cornerstone of Volari advancement for millennia," Admiral Zylvareth stated. "We perfect a technology until it reaches its optimal state, then implement it universally." Hartford couldn't contain herself. "With respect, there's rarely a single optimal solution for all situations. Different problems require different approaches." The discussion continued, with the humans explaining their philosophy of adaptive technology while the Volari described their pursuit of perfect standardization. Despite their differences, a tentative respect began to form between the two groups. Suddenly, alarms echoed throughout the chamber, and the crystalline walls pulsed with red light. "Admiral," a voice announced over the communication system, "long-range sensors detect multiple Chronax battle fleets entering the system. Preliminary count indicates over 30 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts." Zylvareth rose immediately. "This is unprecedented. The Chronax have never committed forces of this magnitude." He turned to Ockafer. "I fear your encounter with their scouts may have provoked a significant response." "Or they were planning this already, and we just happened to be in the wrong place," Reed suggested. "Pirates rarely mobilize full invasion fleets because of a single skirmish." The admiral led them quickly to the command center. where a three-dimensional tactical display showed multiple Chronax fleets converging on not just their position, but also on a nearby Volari colony world. Nevalara colony, Televesh whispered, her silver skin paling. Population 2 million, minimal defensive capabilities. They're targeting civilians, Okafor stated grimly. Classic tactic, divide your enemy's forces by threatening non-military targets. Zalvareth studied her with surprise. You speak from experience? Earth's history is filled with conflict, Okafor replied carefully. We learned these lessons the hard way. The admiral nodded solemnly before turning to his officers. Deploy the fleet to protect Nevalara. Priority is evacuation of civilians. Admiral, Okafor interjected, the Dauntless stands ready to assist. We may be just one vessel, but we have capabilities that might surprise the Chronax. Zalvareth hesitated briefly before nodding. Your assistance is welcome, Captain. Your vessel demonstrated effective tactics against their scouts. Perhaps you can advise our fleet commanders while we mobilize. Within hours, the combined Volari fleet and the Dauntless reached the Nevalara colony, only to find the situation worse than anticipated. 15 Chronax battleships had already established orbital positions around the planet, their weapons bombarding key infrastructure. The colony's crystalline buildings, so perfect in their symmetry, were shattering under the assault. Volari defensive grid is failing, reported Lieutenant Zhang from the Dauntless. Their standardized shields can't adapt to the varied Chronax weapon frequencies. On the view screen, Admiral Zalvareth's expression showed controlled alarm. The Chronax have never deployed such advanced weaponry before. Our defenses should be sufficient. They've been studying you, Okafor realized. Probably for years, those random pirate attacks were intelligence-gathering missions. Impossible, Chief Technologist Vorjulan objected. The Chronax are disorganized raiders, not strategic military planners. Then who are these Chronax? Reed asked pointedly. Because organized, strategic military planning is exactly what we're seeing. A massive explosion blossomed on the planet's surface, visible even from orbit. Televesh gasped as data streamed across her console. Central Evacuation Center hit. Thousands of civilians. Her voice failed her. Okafor's expression hardened. Admiral, with your permission, the Dauntless will engage the Chronax vessels directly over the northern continent. If you can concentrate your forces on protecting the southern evacuation points, we might create an opportunity for civilians to escape. Your single vessel against 5 Chronax battleships, Zalvareth questioned. Captain, while your ship performed admirably against scouts, these are capital ships with concentrated firepower. Trust me, Admiral, Okafor replied, her voice steel. The Dauntless has a few more surprises. After a moment's hesitation, Zalvareth nodded. Proceed, Captain. The Volari will never forget your courage. As the communication ended, Okafor turned to her bridge crew. Battle stations. Lieutenant Zhang, deploy all defensive systems and activate the Hammer protocols. Zhang's eyes widened. Captain, Hammer protocols are classified beyond experimental. Earth Command hasn't authorized field deployment. We're 70 light-years from Earth, Lieutenant, Okafor responded grimly. And there are 2 million civilians down there. I'm authorizing emergency deployment. The Dauntless moved with surprising speed toward the Chronax vessels, its previously hidden weapon ports opening along its hull. From the perspective of the Volari fleet, the human vessel seemed to be on a suicide run against vastly superior forces. What are they doing? Televesh whispered on the Volari command ship. Their vessel cannot possibly withstand concentrated fire from 5 battleships. Admiral Zalvareth watched in silence as the Dauntless closed distance with the Chronax vessels. Perhaps, he finally said, we have more yet to learn about humans. The Chronax ships turned their attention to the approaching human vessel, redirecting their bombardment from the planet's surface. Massive energy weapons fired simultaneously, engulfing the Dauntless in blinding light. When the energy dissipated, the human vessel remained intact, surrounded by a shimmering field that pulsed with rainbow colors where the attacks had struck. Prismatic defense screen holding at 82%, reported Zhang on the Dauntless Bridge. Hammer systems online and calibrated to Chronax shield frequencies. Target their primary weapon arrays, Akafor ordered. Fire when ready. What happened next astonished even the Volari military commanders. The Dauntless fired not energy weapons or conventional projectiles, but what appeared to be microscopic black holes, gravitational singularities that distorted spacetime itself around the Chronax vessels. Their shields, designed to repel energy and matter, proved useless against warped spacetime. Hyperspace amplitude manipulation munitions performing as designed, Hartford reported with grim satisfaction. Targeting computers compensating for gravitational lensing. The Chronax battleships attempted evasive maneuvers, but their massive size made them vulnerable to the precision strikes. One by one, their weapon systems failed as localized gravity wells crushed delicate components. Not designed to destroy the vessels outright, the hammer system instead rendered them combat ineffective with surgical precision. Admiral Zylvareth stared at his tactical display in disbelief. What manner of weapons are these? They defy our understanding of physics. Meanwhile, the Volari fleet, inspired by the Dauntless's unexpected success, pressed their advantage against the remaining Chronax vessels. Yet despite their superior numbers, the standardized Volari weapons proved increasingly ineffective as the Chronax adapted their defenses. Admiral, Akafor's voice came through the comm, the Chronax are using adaptive shielding similar to ours. Your standardized weapon frequencies are becoming predictable to them. We cannot simply redesign our weapons in the middle of battle, Vorjulan protested. You don't need to, Akafor replied. Randomize your firing sequences. Each ship should use slightly different frequencies. Create chaos in your attack pattern. The concept clearly disturbed the Volari commanders, whose entire civilization was built on perfect order and standardization. Yet as more reports of civilian casualties came from the surface, Zylvareth made his decision. Implement Captain Akafor's suggestion. All vessels desynchronize weapon harmonics by random factors. The effect was immediate. The Volari beams, no longer perfectly coordinated but now chaotically varied, began penetrating the Chronax shields. What appeared as disorder to the Volari proved to be an effective strategy against an enemy that had learned to counter their perfect symmetry. Meanwhile, the Dauntless had disabled 3 Chronax battleships and was engaging the remaining 2. Its hull now showed significant damage, with sections exposed to space where enemy fire had finally penetrated its defenses. Hammer systems at 31% capacity, Hartford reported, her voice strained. We can't maintain this output much longer, Captain. Akafor studied the tactical display. We've done our part. The Volari are adapting their tactics. She opened a channel to the Volari flagship. Admiral, we've neutralized 3 enemy vessels, but we're taking heavy damage. Request support to finish these last 2. To her surprise, Zylvareth's response was immediate. All available vessels converge on the Dauntless's position. Protect our allies. What followed was a display of evolving tactics that would be studied in both human and Volari military academies for generations. The perfectly ordered Volari, forced to adapt to chaos, began implementing variations in their attack patterns. Each crystalline ship fired at slightly different frequencies, creating an unpredictable pattern that the Chronax defenses couldn't adapt to quickly enough. Within an hour, the combined human-Volari force had repelled the Chronax attack. The invading fleet retreated, leaving behind disabled vessels and devastation on parts of the colony world. Emergency teams from both species worked together to rescue survivors and stabilize damaged structures. In the aftermath, Captain Akafor stood with Admiral Zylvareth overlooking the central evacuation center, now transformed into a field hospital. Human medical officers worked alongside Volari healers, each adapting to the other's techniques. Your people fought with honor and skill, Captain, Zylvareth said quietly. Without the Dauntless, casualties would have been exponentially higher. Your fleet adapted remarkably quickly, Akafor replied. Most cultures built on such perfect order would have struggled to embrace tactical chaos. Zylvareth was silent for a moment before responding. Perhaps the Volary pursuit of perfection has limitations we had not considered. Your approach, this deliberate variability, proved effective where our standardization failed. Different approaches for different situations, Hartford commented, joining them with a medical patch visible on her arm. Humans call it thinking outside the box. An apt phrase, the Admiral acknowledged. Though I must ask, those weapons your vessel deployed, they manipulated fundamental forces in ways our scientists believed theoretical at best. Achafer exchanged glances with Hartford. The hammer system is experimental technology. Today was its first combat deployment. You risked an untested weapon system against overwhelming odds to protect people you had only just met, Televesh said, approaching with a group of Volary children she had been helping. This reveals much about your species. Commander Reed smiled slightly. Humans have a long history of improvising when our backs are against the wall. It's not always pretty or perfect, but it gets results. The Volary Council has convened an emergency session, Zylvareth informed them. This Cronax attack represents an unprecedented threat to our civilization. Their coordinated strategy and advanced technology suggest they have evolved far beyond simple raiders. Or someone is helping them, Achafer suggested grimly. Those tactics weren't developed overnight. The Admiral nodded solemnly. A disturbing possibility we must investigate. He turned fully to face Achafer. The Council has authorized me to propose a formal alliance between the Volary Confederation and Earth. Your people have demonstrated not just advanced technology, but adaptability and courage that complement our own strengths. Achafer looked surprised. Admiral, I'm authorized to establish diplomatic relations, but a formal military alliance would require approval from Earth's unified government. Of course, Zylvareth acknowledged. But consider this. The Cronax now know of humanity's capabilities. If they are indeed being manipulated by some greater power, as you suggest, your species may already be drawn into a conflict larger than you realize. Reed stepped forward. Captain, he has a point. Even if we wanted to stay neutral, that option may no longer exist. Achafer gazed across the medical center where humans and Volary worked side by side, their differences set aside in service to a greater need. I'll recommend the alliance to Earth Command, Admiral, but I should warn you humanity doesn't always follow the expected path. After today, Zylvareth replied with what might have been the Volary equivalent of a smile, I would be disappointed if you did. Later, as the Dauntless prepared to depart for Earth to deliver their report, Chief Technologist Vorjulan approached Hartford on the docking bay. Engineer Hartford, our analysis of the debris from the Cronax vessels has revealed something disturbing, he said quietly. Components that appear to originate from neither Cronax nor any known species in our database. Hartford frowned. You think they're being supplied by someone else? Not just supplied, Vorjulan replied, handing her a data crystal. Directed. Some of these technologies incorporate principles we've never encountered. Whoever stands behind the Cronax poses a threat to both our civilizations. Hartford accepted the crystal solemnly. The galaxy just got a lot more complicated, didn't it? Indeed, the Volary scientist agreed. But perhaps the combination of Volary precision and human adaptability will prove equal to the challenge. As the Dauntless departed the Volary system, Captain Achafer recorded her final log entry. We came seeking new civilizations and scientific discovery. Instead, we may have found ourselves on the edge of an interstellar conflict. The Volary, for all their advanced technology, were unprepared for an enemy that had studied their perfect patterns and found the flaws within. Humanity's chaotic innovation, so often dismissed as primitive by more advanced cultures, may prove to be exactly what's needed in the coming storm. They laughed at human firepower until they learned the truth, not just about our weapons, but about the human spirit that drives us to adapt, to innovate, and to stand against impossible odds. Whatever comes next, we face it not alone, but with allies who now understand that sometimes Imperfection is the perfect response to an unpredictable universe. As the Dauntless engaged its engines for the journey home, deep in Cronach's territory, a figure shrouded in darkness reviewed the battle footage. Its features were hidden, but its voice echoed with ancient malice as it addressed the kneeling Cronach's commander. So, humans have arrived in this sector. How interesting. Perhaps they will provide a more worthy challenge than the predictable Volary. The galaxy would never be the same again. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.